Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Dreams Unlimited Travel Podcast. My name is John Magi, and I'll be your host. And I am joined by Kevin Close.
Hi, everybody.
And our producer, Craig Williams.
Ahoy, ahoy.
I was waiting for it. We are going to talk about Disney's reopening, as we always do on every show.
It's better than Star Wars.
Really, for you at least. Over and over again, we talk about Disney's reopening. But I wanted to get a fresh perspective on this. We talk a lot about it from the perspective of us being local, being the fact that our livelihoods are related to Disney, and the fact that we can go a lot. So I wanted to bring in somebody who's a big Disney fan, friend of ours, and also would have a different perspective, I think, on the reopening of Disney. And that's our good friend, Nik Walker.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, Nik, how you doing?
Oh, I'm good. This is, as someone who has watched your show so many times, more than I can count, this is incredibly surreal, but I'm honored to be here.
And you see how the sausage is made and how terrible
exactly. Absolutely not. No. This is wonderful.
Thank you so much for joining us. First and foremost, how are you? Are you okay? Are you healthy? Is everybody there healthy?
We're good. You know, it's such a crazy time, as you guys know. And I think that for us, the biggest thing is just whatever we need to do on a given day to find our center and protect ourselves and just feel at ease with the world. That's what we do. It's a lot of movie watching, a lot of cooking at home, a lot of meditation and things of that sort. And also, truthfully, nowadays I rarely go outside. Like I'll go, me and my wife will go for a walk every now and then, but I have to be extra careful just because I have asthma, and and that we just don't know how that flies with this thing. I do, yeah. I live in Queens, and but the other
with a queen.
There you go.
And we could say the same things you do, except for that meditation. Here we call them naps.
Naps are great, though. Anything you need to do. Absolutely, guys. Yeah, but it's good. It's just, taking it a day at a time. That's literally all you can do.
Excellent. All right, so before we get into the questions, give us a little bit of background. Tell us about your family. Tell us about your vacation habits. Tell us about your love of Disney.
Oh, boy.
Viewers and listeners get to know you a little bit.
Absolutely. So, I'm from Boston originally, Boston, Massachusetts. I am the son of my mother was the first black news anchor in Boston for about 30 years. Her name's Liz Walker, and now she is a minister at Roxbury Presbyterian Church. Oh, hello, doggy. Craig's got his little dog out. It's wonderful. My cat is wandering around here somewhere. You probably see him at some point. So she put me, I was always, even early on, I was into storytelling, and I'm an actor and a writer by trade. That's what they pay me to do. Early on, like my favorite books were like Mark Twain, so like Tom Sawyer and Huck Finn were like, those were literally some of the first books I ever read. And I still have the same copies today, like in my bookcase. And I just developed a really strong love of story. And I was watching movies that I was way too young for, that are like, Tarantino and Scorsese and Spielberg and movies that, were just very silly to be watching for a 5 or 6 year old, but I just loved them. I loved Jurassic Park. I loved all these things, and I also loved Disney movies. That was like they were very much my babysitter because with my mom's job, she'd be gone in the evenings, so like I would be me and my brother and sister watching these movies. And as I got older, I just kept developing that, and I started to sing in my school choir, and I started to sing in rock bands, and then I became also very interested in Shakespeare. And so when I went to college, I went to NYU. I majored in Shakespeare, and just really kind of studied the classics. And I did musicals every now and again, but I was really just about like, okay, what's the craft of acting and writing? And I had, going to NYU, being fortunate enough to go to NYU, you're surrounded by all these amazing writers and artists and so many things that you can just kind of like feed your art with. So, I think it's so funny because, like, thinking back on my college experience, I wish I had partied more. Like, I was very much that guy who was like, oh, yeah, totally. You go out. I'm be in the library reading this play, and like that was me, and that was that was like 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And it was also this crazy thing because when I first got out of college, you get out and for actors you audition, like you just try to start booking jobs, and all of my friends were booking much bigger jobs than I was when I was first out. I booked my first job was actually fitting. It was children's theater. I was in I traveled the country in a 9-foot by 13-foot van, and we literally just drove around the country, like performing in anywhere from like huge stadium theaters to like cafetoriums, which I didn't even know was a thing. I had no idea that like you could combine an auditorium and a cafeteria, but you can, and you do, and that's what we did. So much of the theater that we did. But my first, my Broadway debut was in Motown the musical, which we can get into. And whenever I talk about Motown publicly, it's such a crazy thing because I think it's just so well known, at least in the Broadway community, how crazy that show was to put on. And that show gave me so much and gave me some of the best friends that I have, friends to this day. But it was also one of the most insane experiences of my life. And I did that show for about 3 years. Between that, I also did Peter and the Starcatcher. And then I was on Law and Order. And then it was crazy because right around then I was doing the Motown revival. They decided to revive it 3 years after it debuted for no reason. And I was in that revival, and we were told that revival was going to run at least 6 months. Ended up running 3 weeks. And this was the 2 months before my wedding. So I was like, wow, I need a job so I can help pay for my wedding. So I was hitting the bricks furiously. And this show that I had auditioned for many, many years, way back when it was in workshops, before it was even a thing, asked me to come in and audition again. And I wasn't about this show because it was all rap. And I quite honestly, I've never listened to hip hop in my life. Like I wasn't that guy. And, but then my buddy, when I was auditioning for this show, he was like, you know what? Here's the thing. Even though you don't like rap, you do like Shakespeare. This is what you majored in. And this is just heightened verse. It's the same kind of poetry. And that unlocked it for me. So when I went in that fourth time, it was probably the 10th time in 4 years for this show. They had just won the Tonys. And I got in, that show was Hamilton. And that began my Hamilton journey, which was 3.5 years of my life was either in the Broadway cast of that show or on tour with that show. And I played Aaron Burr. And
spectacularly, I might add. We've all seen you. And I've made it very clear that I'm not a fan of the show. I don't like rap either.
Yep.
But you were spectacular.
Thank you. That's very kind of you. I really love, it's there's so much about that show that I just love. And, it truly has given me so much. And we can definitely get into the Hamilton stuff because there's just so much to talk about. And I will say that also that creative team, the team that brought that show to life are some of the smartest, kindest people I've ever been in a room with. And I don't just say that because they employed me for 3.5 years. I really do say that as truth. They are much more giving than they ever have to be. On a Broadway show, what you kind of find very quickly is that this is business, and for better or worse. And as much as we do this because we love it, we also do it because we have to eat. But Lynn and Tommy Cale, who's our director, and Jeffrey Seller, who's our producer, they go above and beyond, and they consistently do, and even now they do, and it really is touching to see. And then the latest thing that happened to me, so when I was on the road for about 2 years with Hamilton, and I loved the show, but I was like, I gotta get home. I have my wife here, I have my cat here, and so I was hitting the bricks for auditions, and this was while I was in the tour still. And there was the guy who had given me my start in this whole career was this guy named Des McAnuff, who, if you know Des directed Jersey Boys. He directed Jesus Christ Superstar Revival. Big River was his show. The show that put him on the map. and he has been around for years, and he's an incredible person. And funnily enough, he was actually the godfather of my best friend in college. So he would take us out to drinks, and I had no idea who this man was. I just knew that he could drop hundreds of dollars on dinner without batting an eye. I was like, okay, this is clearly a man who's done some stuff. But I remember back in NYU, he was like, hey, let's keep in touch, and and all that stuff. And then 3 years out of college, he cast me in a show at La Jolla, and that was my first big break. That was like a big old show it was their pre-Broadway try, and they didn't end up making it to Broadway, but it's a show that I hold very close to my heart. It's called, if you know the Flaming Lips album, Yoshimi Battles the Pink Robots, it was that album put on stage, and it was this really incredible sci-fi thing. That show didn't get as far as we wanted it to get, but then he had just come out with this new show, Ain't Too Proud, and it's about the Temptations, and I was wary of it for a couple reasons. I was wary of it because I was like, I did Motown for so long, and like I just don't, going back to a Motown show is like, okay. And also because the role that they wanted me for was the role that my friend Derek originated, which is and again, we'll get into it later, but it's a supremely hard role. It's actually harder than Burr. He never leaves the stage, ever. And he is basically the script of the show. The show is 1 2.5 hour monologue that is just his. And then he pops into the dances with the Temptations, and he comes back out and talks to you, and then he pops back into the Temptations, and and it's like this whole thing. So I was just like scared of that and all these things. And also, truth be told, I cannot dance. So if you're telling me this is a show that just won the Tony Award for Best Choreography, like that's probably not my show, because I can't dance. So when Des asked me to come in, I was like, hey, I'm honored to come in for you, but just so you know, like I can't dance, and this is going to be terrible when I audition for you. And it was. I completely bombed that dance audition, and I flew in for it, and it was a 2-day audition, because you learn the dance one day, and then you do the dance and the scenes and the songs the next day. And I was terrible at it, but they gave me the role. They gave me the role with the caveat that they were going to put me in a dance boot camp. So my last 5 weeks of Hamilton were spent, they flew their choreographer out to the tour, and I would do dance from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., and then I would do the show at night. And that was my last 5 weeks of Hamilton. So it was some of the most, that was 5 weeks of Hell Week. It was actually insane. But like, what I love is now looking back at those videos, because you record those videos when you're learning to dance like that. Looking back at those videos now, and like looking at how bad I was, and then having had before the shutdown a month of like doing it, and like the cool thing is the other guys playing the Temptations are all people that like I came up with. We all know each other, so like there really is a brotherhood there, and so much of the dancing in that show is not about like, ooh, look how good I can dance. It's just about watching these five, just like the Temptations, watching these five guys in sync with each other, just like enjoying each other's company. That's the fun of it. So it actually now is very comfortable for me. And we just had, we're doing a lot of press to, just to keep, especially because our show, I think the other beauty of our show is that it was written by someone, this woman, Dominique Morisseau, who is from Detroit, who loves her city, and was not shy about, the fact that these guys were 5 young black men living through the civil rights era and what that means. And so the show is incredibly relevant, especially right now. So we've been doing a lot of kind of press about that. And it's been really, I miss my boys. I miss my fellow temps. Like it's so hard seeing them on like digital screens and being like, oh, when are we going to get to like do this together? But I know that day's coming soon. So I'm excited for that, for sure.
When we get a chance, we'll be there.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And we'll be there. We'll be there. So that's
we'll be there to see you.
Oh, well, yeah. And when you do, please let me know so I can, bring you backstage and show you the works and all that goodness.
So you can shun us.
Can I tell a very funny story?
Yes.
I have some cousins. I call them my nephews because of their age and how old I was when they were born. And they've always called me Uncle Kevin. When you came to Orlando, Craig said, Nick's been kind enough to ask you guys to come on backstage. And I said, I have a favor to ask. Can I send my cousin nephews back to meet, because they are huge Hamilton fans.
Yeah.
So they were beyond, I mean, the oldest one is 21. So they were beyond excited. So John and I sat out in the lobby in an effort to not get in the way. So we were just being patient. And all of a sudden, my nephew Nick comes out and his arms are crossed. He goes, "You're not going to believe this." I said, "What?" He goes, "We went backstage and they're really, really nice." I said, "Oh, that's awesome." He goes, "But they're coming out here to meet you." Then he looks at me and goes, "Who are you?" Nobody. But in his eyes, the star of the Broadway show was coming out to meet me. So it was a little moment of glory.
Please, no, you guys. Here's what you have to understand, and I've tried to express this on my social media, and I've definitely expressed it to Craig and Rhino several times. So the reason that I said yes to the Hamilton tour, so there's two factors, right? Obviously, number one, I originated that tour, so the chance to play Burr on that tour was incredible, and them entrusting me to do that meant the world to me. Number two, there were two cities that I saw on that itinerary that I said I have to be on that tour. The first city was New Orleans. Me and my wife go to New Orleans every year. The other city was Orlando. And I said, so basically you're telling me that for 2 months I can be on Disney property and then drive in to see the show and do the show, and then I'll just drive back to Disney. And that's literally what happened for a good 2 months. Like I spent my days at the parks, and then I would go do the show and just back and forth. And I say all that to say, your guys' show, like, especially when you're on the road, like, and you're, we started in Seattle, we started in Portland and Las Vegas and these great cities. But, like, I watch your show religiously. Me and my buddy Fergie, you guys are how we know what's going on in the parks. So it was there was no question about, oh, do we go out to meet? It's like, no, we go out to meet them. Because, like, that you got... Yes, the way that your cousins viewed me, that's the way I view you.
It was really, really sweet. It was, and they still talk about it. Oh. They talk about it. It was the highlight. They'll never forget it.
That's very sweet.
So let's talk about Disney.
Yes, please.
About your love of Disney. You are a huge Disney fan.
Yes.
And I'm sure that, first of all, I want to set it up and say we originally wanted to have Nick on like a month ago. And this just never came together. Because I wanted to talk to someone about how they feel about Disney being shut down and not being able to go to your favorite place. Yep. But now things have changed. Disney's reopening. They've announced a great deal of information about how they're going to reopen. And I'm curious to see, what do you think your view is of some of the stuff that they're announcing? Let's say specifically with the reopening, let's start with the fact they want everybody over the age of 2 to wear a mask. Are you going to go to Disney and wear a mask? Are you going to wait till you don't have to? What do you think?
And again, this might be unpopular opinion, I'm going to wear a mask. And I honestly think it's smart. I know that so many people's opinion of this, of what's happening right now is, you hear that constant thing of it's no worse than the flu. It's, it's what it is. And if it spreads, it spreads. The thing is, we have a vaccine for the flu, and we don't have a vaccine yet for this. And also, what we originally thought about this virus has been, that it didn't affect younger people is now we're seeing that it does, right? And not in the same percentage that it affects the rest of us, but like it certainly does. And again, I think that you should never be afraid to live your life, ever. Always live your life, and don't ever do anything out of fear. That said, be smart. And when you have something that has this many variables, for me, nothing's going to keep me from. If you tell me Disney parks are open, I'm going to the Disney parks. But if there's a way to do that more safe, safer, whatever, I will do that. And to be quite honest, this is something that if we really think about it, as the Disney fans that we are, the masks, okay, that's going to be different. But like, I'm planning to also wear some gloves. I'm planning to like. And if you think about the amount of germs that you touch on those railings, the amount, like, just before all this, like, there's actually some precautions that I think, as much as they're going to feel crazy now, might on the back end be like, you know what, that makes it a little safer, and that's important. It's important for people to feel safe in your park, even if it's an open air park.
Nick, I'm going to be honest. I would go to Broadway in a mask, so I think it's kind of comparable.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You know, it's so funny. We just actually, our company, with the help of one of our lead actors, came out with "Ain't Too Proud" masks that I think they're gonna start thinking about selling once Broadway reopens, selling at the concession stands and all that stuff. And I think that's it. You just have to lean into it for a little while, and it won't be forever. But I think that anything that we can do right now to just make it safer, is paramount. So my wife just got into grad school in San Diego, and I'm gonna move her out there in July, and then she's gonna be out there for 2 years. I'm gonna be out there till work opens up again. But the first thing she looked at me and she's like, "So, annual pass?" And I was like, "Yes." Like we're very like, for the. Oh, absolutely. Because for the things you love, you have you don't stop
loving. Do you have
loving.
an apartment?
It was we got an apartment in San Diego.
That was before the annual pass.
That was slightly before, like literally maybe 2 seconds before the annual pass. But yeah, I think it's great, and I know people are going to be a little upset at the changes. I know it's going to feel constricting, but like at the same time, I've seen, and I was talking to Craig about this, the videos, so many of the videos that I've been watching about Universal in their opening, where there's just crowding and there's, people, and like, again, I get it. People want a return to normalcy, but the thing is, COVID is not gone. Like, we're still in this. So we actually have to be safe. And that's just me, but that's where I'm coming from.
One of the things that worries me is that just me personally going out, I see a lot of people who are not wearing masks.
Yep.
And I want to avoid them.
Yep.
Because I want to stay safe. I want to keep the people I love safe. So I'm always concerned about the fact of the people who will try not to obey the rules.
Yes.
When you go to Disney. So let's hope that they do. Let's hope everybody does okay. The recent study just showed that masks are proven to reduce the spread 65%.
It's insane. Yeah.
And it used to be my mask protected you, your mask protects me, which it still does. But they're even proving that wearing it yourself now protects you.
And like you, Nick, I'm over 60.
Yep.
And
he's not over 60.
No, he said he was asthmatic.
Yeah.
I have I didn't mean to imply that you were old.
Oh, please. 60's not old either.
Well, according to the news, it is. I fall into the elderly category, and it pisses me off. But I'm also diabetic.
Yeah.
So we are being extraordinarily careful, And yeah. I'll be one in the mask.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's it. I think that so much of it, it's not, again, don't ever, don't choose fear, right? Like, if you're smart, we now have what we have that we didn't have back in March are proven ways that help prevent the virus from getting you. So mask, gloves, sanitizing things, like all those things are proven to help. So like, it doesn't mean you can't do things. It just means you have to take the time to be a little more careful. And that's it. And I really think that people's, kind of rebellion of, oh yeah, they can't make me wear a mask. It's like, well, that's just selfish. Like, don't ruin it for everyone else just because you want to show that like you're not afraid. It's like, no, be smart, man. Like, just be smart. That's it. And we'll all have a good time.
Let's talk about the second sort of logistical thing we know Disney has announced is this park reservation system.
Yep.
We don't have details yet. Everyone's speculating on how it's going to work and all of this stuff. What do you think about a park reservation system? And then let's say you do buy an annual pass for Disneyland and you can't get into the park the day you want to get into. How does that affect your ability to enjoy the parks?
It's, again, I just go back to the fact that like right now, when have we experienced something like this? You know what I mean? This is, I hate the word unprecedented because it becomes a buzzword and all this stuff. But what I do believe is that we are in a time when there's just a lot of variables. So I think that, here's what I really think. I think that the cool thing that we have to keep in mind, Disney is a company that is large enough and that has enough IP and power that they can try these trial balloons and see what works and what doesn't. There are some things that we love. Like, for instance, you want to talk about Broadway. Broadway, we can't afford to try. We have to open. That's why it actually behooves Broadway to stay closed for as long as it can. Because Broadway can't afford another shutdown. Disney can, right? Disney could try to open the parks in one way and be like, oop, you know what, that didn't work. We got to pull that back. So for me, I'm just like, for just my love of the parks, I'm like, you know what, but at least they have the ability to try. And as much as it might be an inconvenience for me, I think that I'm just someone who's like, let me just, the facts are my friends. I'm looking at the numbers every day. I'm looking at what this world is doing every day, and I'm just like, look, if you got to take those kind of precautions, that's smart. That makes me feel more safe to know that, like, you're going to limit the number of people in the park. Do you know what I mean? Like, as much as it might, yes, it sucks that, like, oh, I didn't get a reservation that day. Again, not forever, number one. And number two, you know, in the time that it is, this keeps you safe. Also, I mean, look, if you get in, then what? You're complaining about, like, you know, the fact that there's not going to be wait time? Even, like, that's wonderful. That's actually a good thing. That's more time to enjoy the park. I think so much of this comes for the consumer, and those of us who are buying these tickets we have to start thinking communally. Again, you know, there's the individual disappointment. Yeah, because right, and that's the thing: individualistic versus the communal. When this is, it's not just about us; it's about everyone who's trying to enjoy this place. So if it's better to have less people, cool, and you let it go, and again, if it, you know, I think that if you really just take that deep breath, it's not as big a deal as you think it is. You know, but
after 9/11, the world changed. And
yeah,
we adapted.
Yeah.
We adapted. We adapted to a new way of life. We adapted to a new paradigm. I think that's what's going to happen with this.
Yes,
we're going to adapt. I just think people are going to have to get on board.
Yes.
Yeah. The thing is, you talk about we should think communally and globally, which is awesome. The problem is when people have a reservation booked, we see it as travel agents.
Yeah.
People don't. It's a lot about how does this affect me?
Absolutely.
And what am I going to do? And what happens if I don't get the thing I think I should get?
Yes.
And it's very tough to deal with in that sort of microcosm of the person traveling.
Well, and sorry to cut you off, but that speaks to a point that I would actually throw to Disney, and I would say, so here's the flip side of this. We're gonna, you know, if you want to say reservations, if you want to say masks, if you want to say all these things, great. This means that all the things that, like, we have talked about with these parks, especially with World, for years, right? The things that, like, we're waiting for you to fix. There's literally no reason. There's literally what has happened. What the thing that I throw back to the company is I say, great, if you're going to ask people to do this for you, which they will, then your margin for error, the little things, the craziness at Ohana, that stuff can't fly anymore. Like, you really have to be, you have to make it worth it for us to do all this, to come into your park, right? Because you know that we'll come, but treat us with that respect, because we're going to treat your company with that respect, right? So I don't think it's all on us. I also think it's on Disney to say, great, okay, all the wonderful magic that we conjure, we have to conjure that much more magic, because now people are coming in and they're already stressed because there were so many hoops to jump through to get here.
And so many things aren't going to be the same.
Yes.
Right now, there's no parades. There's no fireworks. And I think we have to face the fact that buffets are gone for a good long time.
Yeah, done. They're done.
You have to go in with the idea that we have to adapt.
We have to.
And that it behooves Disney I agree with you, to spruce up the rest. I thought you were going to say fix the Yeti.
Oh, I mean,
you went to Ohana, but
I went to Ohana, but I'll say fix the Yeti as well. There was somebody put. I feel like there was some, like, into something on Twitter, some fake thing where they were like, yeah, Disney has taken the time to really fix the Yeti and make it like this whole. It was like this joke thread that didn't have the Yeti was not fixed. But I'm like, yeah, absolutely fix the Yeti. Like, this is the time. Anything that has are pieces still falling off of the monorail? Like, fix, spruce up your monorail. You know what I mean? Like, what can you do? So our governor here, Andrew Cuomo, who's been doing a great job. There's a lot of policies of his that, like, I'm not, not to get political, but, like, I'm not too hot on. But what I will say for him is the way he's led our state through this pandemic has been stellar, truly stellar. He really,
I would agree with that.
yeah, there's nothing I can say. He gives you the facts every day. He tells you exactly what's going on. And one of the great things that he's done is he's like, cool, okay, so most of the state is shut down. What can we do? The biggest thing for him was construction, because in his mind, he was like, look, if we want to restart the economy, if we want to get this city back to some sort of normalcy, let's put people to work in what ways they can work. And construction is a way that when people return back to the city, they return to a better city. And it's like, great. So all those things that, like, you were saying, oh yeah, we'll get to that. Get to it now. Like, now is the time. Bring people back to a better park than they ever imagined. And then fix it. Fix the bridges. There's a whole list. There's a whole list I could go through. But, like,
in Disney's defense, and I don't usually say this, in Disney's defense, we personally know folks who are work for other companies that are contracted by Disney for construction, and they were brought back a couple weeks ago.
There you go.
My understanding is a lot of what they're working on right now, though, is how to make the systems in place for people entering the park.
Sure.
Like temperature checks and things like that.
We had a rumor that it's going to be, I forget what the word is, but it's going to be no touch.
Yeah.
It's kind of like when you're driving on the Garden State Sun Pass. It's kind of that's it.
How about your temperature?
It's going to take your temperature as you enter the park, as opposed to a more hands-on approach where they have to touch you or point something at you.
Great.
It's going to be more like a toll road.
So unfortunately, I think they don't have the resources to now. Let's finish, Tron. Let's do all the stuff we need to do, because people are being refocused. But hopefully, once all that's done, they can go and they can focus on that other stuff.
Yeah. And again, we know that this all takes time, but I think as long as that's the goal, and especially now that you have what's his name at the top. Oh my God, I'm gonna forget this, but y'all talk about him
tomorrow.
Thank you. Like,
that's a great guy.
That's exactly right. Like, it just, I from everything that I'm hearing, it's just like, if anybody was the guy to lead, like this sector through this time, it just seems like it's him. It just seems like that's the guy. So, like, hopefully all this will move in the right direction, and it sounds like it is.
I love your positivity. I love you think that things are going great. It's so great of a contrast with Craig. It's nice to have that different opinion.
Listen, man, the world's crazy enough. You know what I mean? We can try to spread some joy when we can.
And I'm going to let Kevin finish up this conversation with his questions about Broadway.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Is it okay that this is 3 or 4 hours?
It's okay.
Ask anything you want.
All right. We met you on a tour.
You did.
Would you go back out on tour again?
I would. So I'll give you the straight up candor, and I'll also give you the fun part. So I love, even now, like, I think about it, look, right now we're in this place where travel is hard and a little bit risky, right? The biggest thing about tours, you're always on a flight, and I think that we're all trying to cut our flying time a little bit back just because of recycled air and all this stuff. That said, once things bottom out and once we are able to figure this thing out, which we will be, if a tour was presented to me, yes, because I love getting to know these cities. It really is a wonderful thing. And especially, and again, I think with Hamilton specifically, when you have a show like that people just really love, the city like opens up to you in a way. I get to see the best of each city. Because
also with Hamilton was so phenomenally popular.
Yeah.
Like, we get shows that are here for 5 days.
Yeah.
Hamilton was here for 2 months.
Yes,
So
exactly.
You have to get into a tour that is that popular. Okay, that's my advice to you.
Oh no, that's precisely, and it's and here's the other, and this is definitely a Broadway secret that they, but here's the other thing about it: you actually make more money on a tour. than you do on Broadway in general. Because so the thing is, Broadway houses, as you guys know, are incredibly small, right? A Broadway house is 1,500 seats generally. That's big. Dr. Phillips Center alone is like, I think you guys are like 3,000. You mean like, so just the overhead is much bigger, and on top of that, you get a per diem, right? So with our union rules, you get you have your salary, but then every day, I mean, they pay you, I think it's like $9.70 a week in per diem. That's the minimum. So if you can, and what's great about that is, if you know anybody in the area, right? If you have people who like have a place, or like you're able to work out, I became the king of working out a good Airbnb deal. Like if you ever need an Airbnb negotiation, I'm your guy. And because what would happen is I would talk them down in price, and then I would be able to pocket my per diem on top of my salary. So like I walked away. I mean, that's the reason that like, thankfully, like I'm not worried about money right now, is because of that tour. So it really is actually kind of as much as you sacrifice in the way of like, you're not in the thick of it. Like, the thing about leading a show like Ain't Too Proud actually back on Broadway is, in terms of my career, in terms of that trajectory, like that's when the real press that matters is. That's when, not that the press around the world doesn't matter, but like in terms of, when you have like a New York Times review and all that kind of stuff that can get you somewhere.
Well, Broadway, being a lead on Broadway is always going to carry more weight than being a lead on a tour, I think.
Sure. I mean,
and I'm not in it, but
yeah.
I pay attention.
It's definitely the type of thing that there's a give and a take to anything. And, but what I will say again, I think that the fans on a tour, they've been waiting for it longer. So I think there's honestly a little bit more of an appreciation.
I do too. The fans around the country have been waiting. I brought I flew cousins down from Kentucky to come see you, to come see Hamilton, and meet you. So I think they are more excited.
There's also, I think too, when you go to New York City, I think people are expected that there's a certain cost involved. You understand the cost of a Broadway ticket. For a lot of people who are local, that cost is substantial to go to see a touring company. So they are, that they want to be there. See it.
That's the thing. People ask me all the time about different audiences from different cities, and what the thing is you can, even the audiences, even the cities that are like more quiet, right? Like, the places that like, they're just, like Salt Lake City. Salt Lake City is my favorite example of this. Salt Lake City, the audiences are so respectful, right? Our show, Hamilton, is like a raucous show. Like, we want your energy. They're not about Salt Lake City. They sit there just very quiet, but they are no less engaged than Las Vegas. Do you mean like they are with you? And at the end, they are up in their chairs just applauding. Like, and so you get to see these different cultures, and that I think is just so wonderful. And we know how much especially with Hamilton, how much people scrimp and save to get there. So we try to give you the best show we can. Absolutely.
Now, we had a conversation before we started recording. Mm-hmm. So I am going to ask for your opinion.
Yes.
It is just an opinion. Mm-hmm. You have no facts, I understand. When do you think we will see live theater in New York? Mm-hmm. And on the other hand, on touring companies?
Both of those are, great questions. So on tour, it's going to be a little different, right? Because I think that tour goes by the city. So I know that a lot of tours are now trying to plan their routes around cities' reopenings and see what's open and what's safe, and what the actors feel safe doing. And then on top of that, you got to figure out, okay, how do we get people in the theater? Because I think that's at the heart of this, not just with us, but with sports, with anything that requires people, concerts, anything. Exactly, right? Like, at the end of the day, you can, for some things you can space it out, but like the financial models just weren't built to have it like that. Like, especially for Broadway, our industry works on the fact that we're cramming as many people in as possible. So I think that there's a couple factors. I think you gotta think about when that's safe, and you also got to think about when people will trust each other again. To do that, I think people are ready. I think people want it. I really do. But I also, looking at it, I'm like, honestly, I think it behooves us to wait as long as we can. I think that we should. I truly think all entertainment, not just us. I think film and TV same way. I think we should all kind of be among the last to come back. Just because we, even on a film set, it's like, yeah, you can quarantine and you can socially I know right now there's a lot of plans to, fly your actors out to a location and quarantine them for 2 weeks and then shoot whatever you're going to shoot, which is a good plan. But like, if one person, do you know what I mean, gets sick on that set, a set is a fluid, moving thing. Do you mean like we have to be close? We're in, it's just hard to do that on a film set, and it's very hard to do that on a stage. So I'm just like, I think as much as it sucks that we're not getting paid, you know what I mean? Like, I think that it behooves us to wait. So in answer to your question for New York specifically, I think that you'll probably be looking at early in the new year. I think like January. And that's a guess again. But for tours, maybe a little sooner. Maybe around the holidays. But it's gonna be. Look, I was just talking to my Ain't Too Proud brothers, and we were just like, I've been to a lot of opening nights. I don't think I'm gonna ever see an opening night like the opening night I think Broadway's gonna have when it comes back. I think that's really gonna be something special, because I was just thinking about like how much pent up energy and how many people have wanted this to come back, and how long it's going to be. I think people are going to be really excited. I just think it's going to be a big deal, and I think it's going to be kind of especially for our city, for New York, I think that's going to be kind of a victory lap for us.
It's going to be a jewel in the crown. It really is.
Yeah.
You talk about missing Disney. I live close enough that when it's open, I can go whenever I want.
Yeah.
I miss live theater, and I miss travel. And a lot of times that's hand in hand.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times you have to go to New York City to see the things you really want to do.
Yeah.
So those two things to me are things that are missing out of my life. I've been watching Broadway performances on the internet, on YouTube.
Yeah.
I watched Michael Urie do Buyer and Seller.
Oh, I love that.
And he was spectacular.
Yeah.
I wonder if, there might be something that changes it. Nothing will replace the live show, right?
Mm-hmm.
The excitement of being there. But maybe Broadway is going to have to think about simulcasting and doing pay-per-view type shows in order to keep everybody working.
There's disposable income.
There's definitely it's so one of the things that I'm blessed with at Ain't Too Proud is we have producers who are just the most candid and real, and they honestly, I mean, know as fans of Broadway that you are, all of those discussions are being had. All of them are being had. Everything's being considered, because you absolutely have to think outside of the box. And people's thought is like, oh, but if we're simulcasting it, will it make, it was like that's one of the things that came up, with releasing Hamilton on Disney Plus. The cast had a big meeting, and one of the questions was, what happens when you release this? I mean, if people have access to it, do they just not want to see it live? And I wasn't at the meeting, but what I heard that was said was just like, no, it actually people like most theaters are actually clamoring for Hamilton, because I think that what it will do. I've watched, oh my God, I can't tell you, I've been watching so much Shakespeare, because the Old Globe in London and the Royal Shakespeare Company have been releasing all their archivals on YouTube, just like you guys have been saying about Broadway, and it just makes me want to be there. Like it's great, but it's great, and it's like, oh yeah, I can see that, but like it doesn't. That's a imitation, right? The live experience of being in the same room with those people and seeing how hard they're working, and that's Broadway, that's theater.
Sharing it with an audience. The other thing too is a lot of theater and a lot of art is about educating people,
absolutely,
and showing people other things, and that's the importance of showing Hamilton to a broader audience.
Yeah,
it's also a communal experience. I mean, think about The Lion King.
Yeah,
that would be like saying, "Why is The Lion King on Broadway?"
Exactly.
You can stay home and watch the movie.
Exactly.
But it's not the same experience.
But I think a lot of this coming to the masses who might not be able to go to theaters is a better,
or at least go to New York.
Right. Yes, and that's No, and exactly. I think that's exactly right. I think that what this is going to open up is accessibility, because that's the one thing that, and I've been a huge proponent of this from the beginning, and and I, again, so very lucky to have had 10 years so far on Broadway, and I love my industry, but our tickets are too damn expensive. They just are, and we need to constantly be looking for ways to get people in who can't necessarily afford a $200 seat in the nosebleeds. Do you know what I mean? Like, because otherwise, yes, then our industry dies, because now we're not giving anybody a chance to see it but a select few.
I was just going to say, there you might have enough support, but it's only a certain level of income that can afford to go.
Exactly.
We're talking about bringing things to the masses. One of my all-time favorite shows is Into the Woods.
I love this show.
And I've never seen a live performance of it.
Dude.
I've tried. However, the producers and the director were smart enough that they recorded the original cast on Broadway. They brought everybody back who had already left the show for final performances. And I can tell you that is one of my favorite things to watch on TV. As a matter of fact, John walks through the room and he goes, "You're not watching that again, are you?" And then he puts on Terminator, so the conversation stops.
Absolutely.
But it's one of my favorite. I love it. And I think to myself, I wish they did that with every cast.
Yes.
I wish they had recorded the final performances of Evita.
Yeah.
You know, I would love to go back and see that. And I think other people would go back and reference it. So I hope that there's a shift in how, I think bringing Hamilton to Disney Plus is a start.
Yeah. I think I think that's going to open up a lot of things, and I think that because they already have the Lincoln Center archivals, but those are just filmed from, like, it's one shot. It's not filmed to be seen, right? But a little funny story about Into the Woods. So that was actually one of the first musicals I ever did professionally. It was a revival that they did at it was a co-production between Westport Country Playhouse, if you know that place, which is like, it's a big, like, kind of, like, it's almost like a Broadway. It's like a summer vacation home for Broadway. Like, everybody goes there to do shows in the summer.
Like Williamstown?
Yes, exactly. And it was a co-pro between them and Baltimore Center Stage. But I was Wolf Cinderella's prince, and my baker's wife was Danielle Furland, who was Little Red in the original. So it was like this. Yeah, it was this crazy full circle moment. It was, like, really cool. And that I had never really, that was my first introduction to Sondheim, and I was just stunned. I was like, oh, this is a whole other level of theater. This is just something completely different. I cannot tell you how much I love that show. Also, I love Terminator, so I'm right with both of you. I
figured you'd get there in the middle.
Absolutely.
Nick, I could spend the next 3 or 4 hours talking to you.
We'll do a sequel.
I'm very excited. Oh, please. Whenever you guys want to talk, I'll be back.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Anything we want to close out with? Anything we didn't cover?
I really appreciate you.
Oh, no, I
appreciate you coming to do this with us.
I appreciate you guys, and Key. I know to the fans of Broadway, even to Disney fans like myself. Like, look, I know it's crazy right now. I know the world is crazy right now. It will right itself. Do you know what I mean? Patience, and endurance. Because I know it's hard. But I think we will get there. And stay in touch with me if you guys want. I'm on the Instagram and the Twitter. So come and find me.
Give us your Twitter and Instagram handle.
Oh yeah. I'm at for both. I'm at Nikki Walks. So NIKKYWALKS. So yeah.
I still owe you a Dreams pin.
Oh, you don't owe me. You owe me nothing. Please.
I was going to bring it to you, and I got sloppy and never did.
It's all good. All good.
Well, that's a great place to end it. Nick, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody at home, for listening and watching. We hope you have a great week. Please stay safe and stay healthy.
And when you can, go see Nick on Broadway.
See you there.